It's me again. I'm doing another video. That's like 2 in 1 week or something. And look, I'm in a different place. I'm just doing it to mix it up for you guys. Isn't that wonderful? Right, okay guys, before I start, I'm going to do a disclaimer. I'm going to be using a slur today. Just one, well maybe a couple of slurs. It's in the purpose of education, but if you find that sort of thing upsetting, like I do, just don't watch it. Don't watch it, read the comments. Don't read the comments, never read the comments! So I'm probably getting this reputation of an angry, man-hating, cis-hating, feminazi trans woman who's out to get everyone. Purely because I just rant a lot about things that I find upsetting, which I think is fair. I think that's a human thing to do. But today, I've got one more thing for you. Just one more, I promise, maybe. Okay, so it usually goes something like this. A cis person or non-trans person throws out the word tranny in passing conversation. A trans person, like me, gets offended because it's an offensive word and tells them that they shouldn't be using that word, and argument ensues. Usually this argument is about who's allowed to use what words, and inevitably you get the "but my friend uses it, so I'm allowed to use it with you, right?" And the issue usually ends unresolved, and this is because, in my opinion, no one ever discusses the history of why a word can become such an offensive and powerful negative influence in the world. Right, ignore the fact that the lens and everything has just changed. My camera ran out of batteries, so I switched to my other camera. Continuing swiftly on. What might appear to be the benign act of adding a Y onto the end of a word to make it appear more informal and cutesy, see putting a Y on the end of cute to make it sound more cutesy. But even from this perspective, why would it matter? No one's going to tell you that fag and faggot are fine, but faggy and faggoty aren't. However, there is a whole historical context to this particular word that makes it a whole lot appealing. The term originated as a shortened version of the word transvestite, not even relating to transgender people at all, like completely. However, it was first popularised in the porn industry, and this was back when people didn't know or care about the difference between a transvestite or a transsexual or a transgender person. And while I would be the last person to slag off sexuality and pornography, tranny porn is about as representative of trans person sexuality as girl-on-girl porn is representative of lesbian sexuality. The usual context that we are used in pornography, and I do say used in pornography, is that we are not really women, and it's used to point out how different we are, as well as trying to make us more exotic and sexually provocative. So, when the term got linked to the porn industry and then popularised, it became a good indicator as to what someone's history was within the trans community. For instance, if someone comes up to you and uses the word tranny, it's probably a good indicator that they got most of their information, or at least an introduction to trans people through porn. And probably, these people don't have your best interests at heart. Side note, this is also probably related to where the term tranny chaser came from. Tranny chasers are men who specifically want trans women because of how, let's say, different they are to cis women. They're one thing that would make any difference in the bedroom. Trans people coined the word tranny chaser as a way to distinguish people who, distinguish cis people, usually men, who are trying to take advantage of people, vulnerable people within the trans community, or take advantage, or literally just see us as a sexual commodity. And I'm not a sexual commodity, I know you are. The use of this language has stuck. For example, 6 out of the top 10 results for the term tranny are porn sites. And 5 years ago, I would imagine that that's probably 9 out of 10. Compare that for a Google search for the term transgender, which gives you 10 out of 10 hits for support sites and support networks. Similarly, searching for terms like tranny politics, yes I know, tranny support, reveals only about 200 results. However, if you search for the term tranny sex, you'll get about 2 million results. That's a 10,000-fold increase. So, we have the sex industry using it. When it became popularised, when the sex industry started using it, it became a way for people to beat down and belittle trans people. Usually as a way to focus on our genitals, which I've told you this before, genitals don't make the person. So nowadays, when the majority of at least trans women hear the word tranny, it's usually accompanied with either violence or hatred or memories of violence or hatred. So as such, it comes with a little bit of a stigma attached, at least for me anyway. And even if the term were going to be reclaimed, which I hope it isn't, but if you do, power to you, even if it were reclaimed, I still come like very close to panic attacks when it's used in public. I'm in my house with my dog who is there. Coca! Can you hear her tail wagging? Yeah, and I feel safe. I have my big dog with me. She's not that big, she's soft and fluffy, but no one else knows that. But yeah, if it's used in public, like if I hear it like out in the world, I get like shivers because I imagine whoever's using it is about to beat the shit out of me. So even now, whilst people are reclaiming it, most people are using it as a way of objectifying, sexualising and belittling trans people. It's true the term is being reclaimed, but instead of comparing it to how the terms queer and dyke are today, it's better to think of it in terms of how queer was 20 years ago and how dyke was 10 years ago. Because that's how far the trans movement is behind those other movements, and that's where we're at. The issue of reclaiming this term is even further complicated. You see, whilst I've been standing here discussing the fact that this term has been used to degrade trans people, the reality of the matter is it's mainly used to sexualise and objectify trans women. Trans men, comparatively, have been fairly invisible in the porn industry, and even the films that are featuring trans men are mainly produced by trans men and they can make their own say about it, whereas most films produced about trans women are produced by cis men. Yet, a significant portion of the people trying to reclaim this word have been trans men, which is interesting because it hasn't been really used against them in the same way it has been used against. I'm not trying to set our communities into two parts. I'm just saying, from what I have seen, trans men trying to reclaim the word don't know the negative history and the connotations it has. It's difficult to know what to really think about that gender breakdown, because say I run into a group of trans men who were using this word, like reclaiming it and using it to bring them pride. I wouldn't know whether to thank them for creating a positive use for the word or criticising them for their insensitivity to a word that's used to degrade and dehumanise people. Regardless to all this, it is true that on a couple of occasions I have attempted to reclaim the word myself. I failed because it's too much in here. Even so, context in this sort of reclaiming of the word is absolutely key. For instance, recently I had to try and educate a friend of mine from work. He was telling me that he met a really hot tranny this weekend and wasn't aware that even though he was saying it in a positive way, how offensive it was because of how the word was used. For the record, I would have been more comfortable with, wow, I met a really hot trans woman that weekend. It's a lot less offensive, it hurts no one, and it doesn't even hurt you for changing your ways. Personally, I'm not comfortable using the term to refer to anyone but myself, and when I do use it to refer to myself, it's mainly in jest or when telling an anecdote. If I wasn't trans, I wouldn't use the term at all. I might use the term to draw upon its history, such as saying, oh, I'm just another tranny rebelling against the patriarchy, or to underscore someone else's transphobia.
You just don't care what this dirty tranny thinks, do you?
But these are very, very rare circumstances, and for me, I try and keep it out of my life pretty much 99% of the time. In all honesty, if I were to reclaim the term, I would really want it to be used to describe a trans woman's sexual power and her body positivity. The reason this would be okay is because it's the exact opposite of its derogatory use. After all that, I'm not here to tell other trans people how or how not to use a word, especially if they have been subject to that word's derogatory use themselves. All I ask is you think about the context in which you're using words, who you're with, and be willing to, if you are questioned about why you're using that word, be able to draw upon its history and say, this makes me feel empowered. Boom! I'm done, guys. That's it. Rant over. Cliche in the bag. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. I don't care. Feedback is feedback. Leave a comment down below. Add me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or Tumblr. I have been Chrissy. You've all been wonderful. Bye!
I might use it to call, if you search for the term tranny sex, you'll get about 2 million results. That's a 1,000-fold increase. However, scratch that, it's a 10,000-fold increase. Boop, I'm done, guys.